Hello and welcome back to the Discourse and Dialysis. Previously, we spoke about the idea of having one nation composed of many different groups of people. I wanted to begin this series talking about how critically important it is for us all to be more tolerant of one another, especially in regards to deeply held beliefs. There are many reasons that people become very heated when having discussions on politics. One of them is because we collectively suck at debates, and often steer ourselves away from actually talking about the issue. This occurs frequently through the use of logical fallacies, which is the topic of this episode. I would like to begin this episode by talking about 12 types of logical fallacies and explaining what each type consists of. The latter half of this video we will be looking at examples of logical fallacies used today. Logical fallacies. Ad hominem. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker attacks the opponent's character and person rather than the idea being discussed. This is probably the most common and damaging of all the logical fallacies, as it puts the participants at odds with each other and harms their relationship. By attacking the morals and character of the opponent and not the idea itself, this shifts focus away from what is actually being discussed and does nothing to further the actual discussion attempting to be had. Ad hominem fallacies drive a wedge between those debating and lead to a lack of ability to continue. An example of this type of fallacy is you don't have a say about abortion because you're not a woman. This example attempts to discredit the opponent due to the character of the opponent, namely they are male. It has no bearing on the quality of the opponent's argument. Ad populum. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker appeals to emotions rather than logical argument. This is also known as bandwagoning and seeks to appeal to the popularity of a topic rather than its true merit. An example of this type of fallacy is, buy the new best-selling iPhone. It's the most popular phone on the market today. This example does not give any actual reason for buying the new iPhone except that it is popular. Begging the claim. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker makes an argument supported by a claim which has not been proved. It is similar to a house of cards, where the top layer of an argument is supported by a premise which has not been agreed. This type of fallacy can be very frustrating and highlights the importance for starting at the root of an argument rather than closer to the conclusion of it. An example of this type of fallacy is we must stop all carbon emissions within 18 months because we are going to reach a tipping point in regards to climate catastrophe. This example presupposes that there is agreement with the opponent on if human activity is causing change in the climate. Circular argument. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker proves their point by referencing their point. Or, that is to say, references their original point to prove the point initially being made. An example of this type of fallacy is I believe that the Bible is true because the Bible tells me it's true. This example finds support for the argument in the argument itself. Either or. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker presents a complex question as an oversimplified argument that only has two possibilities, disregarding that there may in fact be other options. An example of this type of fallacy is what would you like on your hamburger, lettuce or ketchup? This example excludes the possibility of getting both lettuce and ketchup on the burger, or cheese, or mustard. Genetic fallacy. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker judges the current state of a thing based on the origins of that thing. An example of this somewhat uncommon fallacy, along with begging the claim, is the United States was founded in 1619 and entirely rooted in slavery. Therefore, the United States today is filled with institutions which are evil and promote slavery. This example uses begging the claim to state that America was founded in 1619 and was rooted in slavery. Both ideas may not be agreed upon in the debate. It then follows that with the genetic fallacy that because the nation was founded in such ideals, it must still be evil. Hasty generalizations. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker makes broad conclusions based on a small subset of data. An example of this type of fallacy is I saw a news story of a man who killed his wife with a gun. Therefore, all guns should be banned to stop killings. This example highlights one example to draw broad conclusions which may not be accurate. In today's modern news cycle, these types of stories are very common and cause people to draw unmerit conclusions from a small sample size. Moral equivalence. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker uses hyperbole and/or false comparisons during a discussion. This occurs very frequently on the internet. An example of this type of fallacy is, Trump is Hitler. President Trump is clearly not Adolf Hitler by any objective standard, but this is used to link the two ideas erroneously together. This type of fallacy is often linked with an ad hominem attack on the opponent, as the implied or stated conclusion is that if you support President Trump, you are supporting Adolf Hitler. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker makes a claim that because two events occurred in proximity to each other, they must be related. The Latin of this roughly translates to after this, therefore because of this. The writer Aaron Sorkin much more effectively relates this in the television show The West Wing and provides a much better example than I could.
Trade surplus.
That's no good. Jaworski knows that's no good.
Mostly he's going to say that the Japanese need to buy more American cars.
Americans need to buy more American cars.
Which is what I told Jaworski.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
What do you got?
443 is going to stay in committee.
I heard.
What else?
The Ryder Cup team is declining our invitation to come to the White House
You're kidding.
because of the joke.
You're kidding.
I'm not.
The Ryder Cup team.
It's a group of the best golfers in the country.
I know what the Ryder Cup team is. Thanks, Mrs. Lanningham.
Sir, this may be a good time to talk about your sense of humor.
I've got an intelligence briefing, a security briefing, and a 90-minute budget meeting all scheduled for the same 45 minutes. You sure this is a good time to talk about my sense of humor?
No.
Me neither.
What else?
It's just that it's not the first time it's happened.
I know.
Talking about Texas, sir?
I know.
USA Today asks you why you don't spend more time campaigning in Texas, and you say it's because you don't look good in funny hats.
It was big hats.
What difference does it make?
It makes a difference.
The point is we got whomped in Texas.
We got whomped in Texas twice.
We got whomped in the primary, and we got whomped in November.
I think I was there.
And it was avoidable, sir.
CJ, on your tombstone, it's going to read post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Okay, but none of my visitors are going to be able to understand my tombstone.
27 lawyers in the room. Anybody know post hoc ergo propter hoc? Josh?
Post, after hoc, ergo, therefore, after hoc, therefore, something else hoc.
Thank you. Next.
Well, if I got more credit on the 443 thing.
Leo.
After it, therefore, because of it.
After it, therefore, because of it. It means one thing follows the other, therefore it was caused by the other. But it's not always true. In fact, it's hardly ever true. We did not lose Texas because of the hat joke. Do you know when we lost Texas?
When you learn to speak Latin?
Go figure.
What else?
In the example, the White House press secretary, C.J. Craig, uses this fallacy when she says that President Bartlett's comment about cowboy hats being funny and other jokes he made is the reason Bartlett did not do well in Texas. Bartlett then corrects her, saying that the two elements are unrelated, despite that they are close in time to one another. The real reason he did not do well in Texas was because he is an intellectual who speaks Latin. This is also a good demonstration of how this logical fallacy is often used unknowingly by the speaker. Human beings have a strong natural tendency to relate things which occur either in the same time frame or location. Red herring. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker brings into an argument a piece of information that, while it may be true, is irrelevant to the argument at hand. These can be difficult to spot, and often the speaker will attempt to rationalize how and why the two unrelated topics are linked. An example of this type of fallacy is when asked about whether a healthcare plan will raise people's taxes, the speaker responds, "My healthcare plan will lower overall costs for families." The speaker may believe that the overall costs of healthcare will decrease with their plan. But that doesn't answer the question posed to them. This is done because the speaker knows that taxes for people will in fact go up, but they do not want to admit that. Slippery slope. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker states that a current or proposed issue will certainly lead to an undesirable outcome. An example of this type of fallacy is if we let homosexuals get married, we'll eventually let people marry children. This example attempts to argue what may be a logical conclusion to a proposal, but is not discussing the merits of the immediate proposal itself. It is not a valid argument because taken to the extreme, any measure will have a disastrous outcome. Straw man. This type of fallacy occurs when the speaker attacks their opponent for a point of view which the opponent does not have. This is one of the most common types of fallacies. The Republicans' health care plan doesn't care about seniors, it's the same as throwing Granny off a cliff. In the example, the speaker conjures a false argument that the Republicans are not making. Namely that their health plan does not care about seniors. This is a frustrating fallacy to deal with because the opponent has to take time to clarify what their position is in reality. In my humble opinion, we see examples of logical fallacies every day in the real world. They distract debates from the issue at hand and prevent or delay a true conclusion from being reached. As stated in episode 1, it is okay to disagree on a conclusion at the end of an argument. Logical fallacies prevent an argument from reaching an honest conclusion and serve as a deterrent to positive and open discussion. Here are some logical fallacies used in recent politics from American politicians. See if you can spot the logical fallacy.
Let me just give you a little translation here. I'm telling Latinos that despite the fact that we are facing difficult times, this is our country too.
We are. Now, I may not be the loudest person up here, but I think we've already got that in the White House. Houston, we have a problem. We have a guy there that is literally running our country like a game show. He would rather lie than lead.
The first is just how dangerous Donald Trump is, the cost and the consequence of his presidency. A racism and violence that had long been a part of America was welcomed out into the open and directed to my hometown of El Paso, Texas, where 22 people were killed, dozens more grievously injured by a man carrying a weapon he should never have been able to buy in the first place, inspired to kill by our president.
So President Trump, you've spent the last 2.5 years full-time trying to sow hate and division among us, and that is why we've gotten nothing done. You have used hate, intimidation, fear, and over 12,000 lies as a way to distract from your failed policies and your broken promises. The only reason you've not been indicted is because there was a memo in the Department of Justice that says a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime.
Let me be blunt and tell you what you don't hear much about in Congress or in the media. And that is, it goes without saying that we must and will defeat Trump, the most dangerous president in the history of this country. And yes, we will address the catastrophic crisis of climate change and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel.
I got my big opportunity about a half mile down the road from here at the University of Houston, back when it cost $50 a semester.
Will middle-class taxes go up? Will private insurance be eliminated?
Look, what families have to deal with is cost, total cost.
Every study done shows that Medicare for all is the most cost-effective approach to providing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country.
So let's be clear. I've actually never met anybody who likes their health insurance company.
That's a big difference because Barack Obama's vision was not to leave 10 million people uncovered.
They do not have to buy in.
You just said that. You just said that 2 minutes ago. You just said 2 minutes ago that they would have to buy in. You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago? That's a big difference. I'm fulfilling the legacy of Barack Obama, and you're not.
I'll be surprised to him.
Senator Booker.
Now, I am Asian, so I know a lot of doctors, and they tell me that they spend a lot of time.
But I'm with the freedom-loving patriots of the Lone Star State. I love it. And there's never been a better time to be a proud American. There never has. Never has. But the more America achieves, the more hateful and enraged these crazy Democrats become. At stake in this fight is the survival of American democracy itself. Don't kid yourself. That's what they want. They are destroying this country, but we will never let it happen, not even close. You know, I really don't believe anymore that they love our country. I don't believe it.
Ultimately, we as a society must work to overcome the temptation to resort to these tactics, for they only serve to disunify people and separate us from understanding one another on a very basic and fundamental level. The next time you are in a conversation, think to yourself how you are using any one of these logical fallacies and how you can avoid doing so in the future. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, is credited with saying it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Do not shy away from hearing others' points of view and discussing it with them in a respectful manner. It does not make you a finer person, nor them worse, to refuse to listen to their point on a topic. Indeed, it is the only way that civilized society can flourish, when we listen to one another and earnestly consider points of view which are not our own. That's it for today's episode, but please comment on your thoughts on the topic, whether you agree or disagree, or what you think would be an interesting conversation for a future show. Please also subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. Join me next time when we discuss viewing history through an historical lens. Until next time, keep your discussions open and without fallacy.